think we're live both here and on YouTube and on Facebook as well. So, let's see. Alright, I think we're good to go. Alright, so today I'm doing a painting of Tom Crean, who was a sort of legendary Antarctic explorer from Ireland. You should definitely look him up. It's well worth looking into. My girlfriend's been reading a lot of the stories of the Antarctic explorers. And I mentioned last week that I was going to possibly do a painting of Ernest Shackleton, Edward Ernest Shackleton, whose famous expedition to the South Pole went awry when he got stuck in the Arctic floe, and before they reached land, and got locked in the ice. And shortly thereafter, their boat got crushed in the ice and it sank. And they spent like nearly 2 years trying to find help, escaping to the island on the north side, or very tip of the peninsula of the Antarctic, and then taking a lifeboat 800 miles across the South Antarctic Sea, I don't know, anyways, to the island of South Georgia, and then traversing the island of South Georgia to a whaling station, and then going back to getting the rest of the crew in the Antarctic. So but Shackleton, his photos were just kind of straight portraits and photos, but one of the crew members was this guy, Tom Crean, and he was been on other expeditions as well. He joined the Navy when he was 15 years old. He kind of ran away from home to that. Anyways, great story and interesting face, which is good for painting. So that's what we're going to do today. You can see, if you're on my YouTube channel, you can see the reference up in the top right corner that I'm using. So this is going to be fun, just a little exercise. Nothing else. Doing a little portrait paintings and studies like this is fun to keep yourself fresh. It doesn't take a lot of effort. It's pretty, when you're keeping something straightforward, you know, you don't have to have a lot of elements to keep track of, and foreground, background stuff. So all you have to do is kind of focus on one thing. And it's I'm working on an 11 by 14 inch canvas, which is fairly small for me. It's easy to cover within about an hour, so we should have something going here in about an hour or so, a semi-finished portrait. Now, usually what I do after that hour is the next day or two I go back into it and do touch-ups and different things. So anyways, what I'm doing right now is I'm covering this canvas with a mixture of raw umber and burnt umber, and I'm thinning it down with odorless mineral spirits so that it spreads thin and it moves. And the more thin you use this, the more like watercolor, as you can see. So it just drips out, but we don't want it that thin because the painting starts running while you're trying to work on it too much. So I just showed you that as an example, and now I gotta fix it. So alright. So I'm gonna get it covered about like that. Let's get some paint on there. And one of the reasons to do this is just to get rid of that white canvas, so we don't want that anymore. You can see some little artifacts in here. There's just probably just stuff on my canvas, little specks of dust and whatnot. But I'm using a pre-stretched canvas that you can get from any art supply store. I do stretch my own canvases from time to time, but I don't really see that there's a need for it unless I want to do some sort of custom size. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is just lay in the composition. So where is the head on this? So think of this as just doing a silhouette. Doesn't have to be super accurate yet. He's wearing some weird, I would assume Antarctic explorer hat, huh? Alright, so how do I want this? Okay, I think I want his face a little bigger than this. So if you don't like it, you can just paint back in. So we're just creating shapes. Just like that. Okay, it's not perfect, but what do I know? All right. That's the basics of it. And so his face, I'm just gonna kind of wipe out the outline of his face. He's got a really square, angular face. These kind of faces are really fun to paint, I think. That forehead's up high. This is where his eyes, sockets are. Okay. Got a lip right there. This is looking goofy. we're gonna fix that, hopefully. All right. So hitting some highlights. Where his eyes are. This is where his eye socket is. His nose. His nose is kind of long, triangular, and slants off like that. I'm gonna switch up my brushes here a little bit to a flat brush. It's number 8. All right. So back to it. All right. So under his nose, right there. Just, face kind of slants off to the side in this photo here. Okay, so as I continue to describe some of his face here. And so I'm drawing this face in with shapes and brush strokes, and I'm not really trying to describe the outline of his face or anything. I mean, I kind of described the whole thing, and there's an edge, so what I mean is I'm not drawing edge relationships quite yet. Those, wait, let's get his eyes in there. So this is starting out with basic shapes of where the features of his face are. And so you're going to look at angles of his eyebrows, angles his nose takes, the way his mouth and his eyes are juxtaposed together, and do your best to get those relationships together. Like I said, I'm not drawing in like too much detail. Like I'm not drawing in like the pupils of the eyes and all that stuff. That will come in later. All right. The reason I don't like to do that is that it ends up you end up getting caught up in detail, and then you're can lose focus of the bigger picture. And it's frustrating when you spend like an hour really painting an eye, looks really nice, and then the rest of the head isn't in the right spot. And so you've either got to paint everything else to match the eye you just painted, or you got to repaint the eye. So rather than, so to speak, painting myself into a corner with that kind of stuff, I'm avoiding those corners and painting myself into circles instead. That's my joke. Alright. I also did something different than I did last week. I'm standing up to paint, which I would recommend. The reason for that is when you have your whole body to move around, you just have, I don't even know how to describe this. You're putting your whole body into it. So you can step back, I can step back a few feet, look at my painting, and things look different when you're 10 feet away from it. So when you're all up in your painting the whole time, you can have the same problem you can have if you focus on detail too much. You get caught up in how it looks up close without being careful about how it's looking from a distance. And sometimes you can see things more clearly from a distance. It's kind of like seeing the forest for the trees, I guess. Okay, so this time, compared to last week, I'm taking a little bit more time and laying his face out. I don't know, because I want to, I guess. There's no real reason. I think there's a lot more features to jump on this versus the Walter White that I did last week. So there is some benefit to planning ahead or having some general scheme. All right. Let's describe this muscle over here on his face. Another thing that you can try to aim for, which I try to do, this is looking like a dude or something, is try to keep your brush strokes simple. And one way to do that is to use a big brush. Use a big boy brush, or big girl brush if you're a girl. Whatever. Alright, so let's pull his eye out here. He's looking a little pinch-eyed. Indicate his turtleneck, his clothing. So I'm going to try to attack this with a certain color theme today. Like, I think yellows and purples would look nice. And we're going to try to maintain this sort of look and feel of a black and white photo while using color. Alright, so I'm just going to continue to like figure out where these things are here in this painting. So So, one thing I can see, maybe I got his eyes too big here. Let's do this. So I'm using a cotton rag to wipe out highlights and stuff. You can get these just house painting rags. You can get them in any hardware store. to do this stuff here. Okay, he's got this sort of square shape right there. His jaw goes up like that. So it's kind of a constant push and pull of just one edge to the other, one shape. Alright, let's kind of get his neck in there. And then there's the pull of his shirt coming down this way. Gravity's pulling it down that way. Alright. Continue with that. Over here. Alright, we want. Just grab that right there. Let's see. There's some really good documentaries and there's one, it's mostly in German, so you have to read the subtitles, but it really describes Tom Crean's story. And one of the things he did on one of his expeditions that was going awry was he was out on the ice with some other people, and they couldn't go on. They had they were like starving or something, and so he left for help on his own with nothing but some like biscuits and chocolate, and traversed a whole part of the Antarctic to get help, and by himself, and made it. And one of the things that's crazy about that is that if he hadn't gone, he probably would have died, or the people he was with would have died. But he I'm losing my train of thought here. This is hard to do. It's hard to talk when you're eating. Yeah. All right. Sorry, I'm taking aside from my story here. He looks kind of like he just got back from Burning Man or something in this photo. Tom Crean here seen at the first Burning Man. I guess there's a sportscaster named, or some coach or something, same name. It's not that guy. It's not who I'm picking today. Alright, now I'm just kind of laying in shapes from his shirt. Dang it. Looks like Tom Crean was a hipster before hipsters were cool. When hipsters went to the South Pole instead of, like, tweeted it. sat at their computer. I don't know what do hipsters do. Sounds like something a hipster would say. Alright, so I step back and I can see what's not working. That needs to come over there. I step back and look at it. And that's where you can start seeing where your issues are. You know, I know I haven't got to the pipe yet, but let's make sure I have his mouth on the right spot before I start putting a pipe in there. All right. Alright, it's starting to still look not right. Alright. And at some point I'm just going to start putting some paint down here. Some of this is starting to be close enough. Got most of the landmarks figured out, I think. Let's see here. All right. If you don't know what you're doing, do it boldly. So I'll just throw in, like sometimes you can be really too apprehensive with something. I find that often if I just kind of exaggerate something, that's usually why it wasn't working, is because I was trying to be too timid with a line or a movement in the painting or the drawing part of it. So don't be afraid to really get extreme with something, you know, like push it way out somewhere. See if that makes it work better. So for me, like, painting is often like trying to keep a train from going off the tracks. And hopefully by the time you get it finished, nobody, you know, unless they're watching your live stream, it sees all the work that goes into getting it right. Just chip way out there. So I'm continuing to spending more time today doing this sort of guess you could call it an underpainting. But we're going to go right over top of this and then into it with the with pigment in a second. So one of the benefits of doing this with sort of this one tone is when I start going into it with color, I have, well, first of all, I have something on the canvas besides white. But I have a tone to go with, and these colors, because they're wet, will work into the entire painting, and it'll sort of make everything have a common thread, which would be this brown color, this mixture of burnt umber and raw umber. And that can help unify the color structures, the color palettes, and the structure of the painting all together. So it also can help you inform you like what kind of decisions to make when you're trying to figure out what color you should mix on your palette to do a certain area. Because you'll have this will be the first part of the key, so to speak, key to the puzzle of what color should I use. You start doing a lot of portraits, what you'll find is you'll start looking at people's face all the time, like trying to figure out like how I would draw that or how I would paint it. Like what colors would I use? Like when I'm out and about, that's how I'm looking at things. I'm just paying attention to the colors and what pigments I would use to, you know, get that color. All right. So I'm going to quickly just sort of now I'll do this. They're not leaving enough room for his pipe. Maybe I should have included that to begin with. Well, screw it. I'm not going to repaint his face to put the pipe closer in. That's good enough. All right. We don't need the exact. Oh wait, we don't need that. Way better than that right now. Now, if you want to take the time to do a drawing and carefully and all that stuff, by all means, go for it. I'm just not patient anymore, and I like to get right to it. And actually, I find this part really kind of fun anyway, so because immediately it's like now I haven't spent all the time drawing it out in pencil or pen or whatever, and I'm actually already working on the painting, so there's that. I used to do really detailed drawings before I started working on the painting, and I'd do detailed drawings and I would compose them and rearrange them with tracing paper and draw over them and make my composition all figured out, and then I would carefully transfer that painting to a painting surface, and then I would carefully render it with I used to use acrylics and colored pencil, and at the end I would have a nice painting, but it didn't have that energy that the sketches had, and I was frustrated by that, so I just got rid of the middleman, so to speak, and started doing all of my work right onto the canvas rather than just doing all these drawings and drawing things out. And then I have the sketch quality that's in this part of the painting that goes through into the rest of the into the finished work, and that's really, I find that to be enjoyable. There's a double-edged sword to that, which is I used to spend more time drawing it with paint on a canvas, and then I'd put some colors over, like thin layers of color, let those dry, and then go back into it and work on that. So the thing is if you don't do a lot of planning and you have a complicated composition, you can end up having things that aren't composed right, and then you have to do major changes to your painting. Like I've had to paint out all kinds of different things. And if you don't have the stomach for changing something in your work, then I would suggest maybe doing the more, yeah, that's cool, carefully drawn out, you know, more pre-planned. But for something like portraits, we don't need too much fun. I like for things to come up in a painting and for there to be issues and things I have to solve. All right, so now I'm going to start putting some color on here. Let's see how this looks. All right, make sure. So I am going to, so I haven't really described the colors I'm using today. I've got Dioxazine Purple, Indigo Blue, French Ultramarine Blue, Burnt Umber, Raw Umber, Burnt Sienna, Aliziran Crimson, Cadmium Red Light, Raw Sienna, Yellow Ochre, Naples Yellow, the Yellow Green from like Blick brand, and then from Gamblin brands, these are the only brands that make these colors right here, are Portland Gray Light, Portland Gray Medium, Portland Gray Dark. I have a Paynes Gray, and that's it. So I don't have a black or a white on my canvas. I try to use the colors that I have and the natural value of the colors, which is what I mean by that is how dark or light they are, to create my lights and my darks. So they're just the natural colors. The closest I have to white is this Portland Gray Light, and it's still not quite, it's not white. These neutral colors are really nice for modulating the how intense the colors are, and I use these a lot along with these earth tones. So all of these colors here you can find in any brand, so I don't really, you know, whatever you prefer. Other colors I have here are Indian Yellow, which is kind of old here. I need to get a new tube of this. But it's really translucent. You can see, if you can see this, which what I mean by translucent is that you can see through it. So there's translucent and transparent. This is more of a transparent. Translucent lets light through. Transparent you can see through. Then opaque colors are you can't see through them. They're thick. So this color, Indian Yellow and Dioxazine Purple, is also a sort of translucent, transparent. And yellow and purple are complementary colors, so they make nice grays. So we're going to try to keep this sort of a yellow and purpley violet painting. And so on all of the light areas, I'm going to have this yellowish tone. In the darker areas, it's going to be more violet. So the one thing I'm going to do to sort of variate the purples is I have these blues, this French Ultramarine and this Indigo Blue, which is a really neutral blue, and then I have Aliziran Crimson, which is a very dark, cool red. So I'm creating a mixture of basically violets and yellows, and I might tip into the yellowish green in some areas, and I might tip into the bluer or redder violets, but these colors should look nice together. And the more separate we keep them, the more it'll have a black and white feel without being black and white. So that's the plan. Let's see what I can do here. Alright, so let's start in the dark areas. So I'm going to take some Dioxazine Purple, and I have a mixture of linseed oil and liquin, and mostly I have linseed oil floating on the top, and so I put some of that on the palette to mix with, and I'm mixing it into these browns that I've used. So I'm mixing it into my palette mixture, and I want to make this dark, so I'm going to mix this Aliziran Crimson Red, and let's see how that looks. So I want to go a little darker, so I want to mix French ultramarine and Aliziran Crimson. I'm going to go a little heavier on Aliziran Crimson, I think. And so this is mixing with the color we already have on it, this brown color. One thing is fun to do if you get into sort of this habit is to make as simple a brushstroke as you can. So if I can make it one brushstroke rather than scribbling around, then I try to do it with one brushstroke or two brushstrokes. Like, how simple can you do it? Alright, so that's looking kind of nice. I like that color. Alright. So where else do we have that? We have the shape of his shirt. Got some inclination to do maybe some other paintings of explorers and stuff. I think that could be fun. I started a series I called Grit like a while ago, and then I got sidetracked with other projects. And one of the paintings I did for that was Amelia Earhart. I think that this could fit in with that series. So let's see if I get some burn umber, put some indigo blue in there. All right. Yeah, all right. So let's get under his chin there. Don't worry about painting over this pipe if you've already locked that in. This is kind of nice. I like it. Going to continue to, I'm going to wipe some, let me do this, there we go. Alright, back to his eyes. Shadows under his eyes right there. So his hair. All right. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean out some of that paint out of that brush and the mineral spirits here. And wipe any excess out with this rag, giving you a step-by-step. Okay, so now I'm going to take some Portland gray medium and I'm going to start mixing in some of this Indian yellow. We're going to start using that to block in his skin tone. I'm going to take some raw sienna here, put that in there as well. See what kind of yellow tone makes sense on his face. So I'm just gonna mostly cover his, yeah, that looks like that might work. So I got kind of a gray yellow tone. That's that's the technical word for it, gray yellow tone. And so when I'm putting brush strokes down, I'm looking for the form of his face. Like if you think of it in 3 dimensions, so he's got a forehead that goes across this way, the head turns in space, and so my brush stroke, that's why I like these flat brushes, so you can get all kinds of different shapes of strokes. So I'm just going with the shape and plane of his face in these different areas. So like the side of his face right there, it's going to have one stroke right there. And so you can think of it just as it's almost like a sculpture. So there's that shape that's going up, his cheek up towards his eye right there. And I'm going to take a little bit of this purple mixture to turn that a little more gray. So as that part of his cheek turns in space, it catches light differently. So it looks like he's lit from several different light sources, possibly. Like one kind of coming down over his face right here. Alright. So I'm continuing to just, each brush stroke is just, I'm kind of flowing with his cheekbone right here. Alright, so let's go back a little bit brighter on this sort of musculature on his mouth. Alright, let's get his nose somewhat situated in there. Okay, the side of his nose is going to be a little bit. So I'm going to move to raw umber instead of using that purple. That might be a better choice. It's a little more neutral, so it won't change the hue as much. So when I mix purple with that yellow, it changes that yellow. So if we just want to make that yellow darker without changing it yellow, you can use a Paynes gray or dark black, but I'm going to use a raw umber because raw umber is a little more on the cool side of the browns. It's on a yellowish green tint already. So see, it's not going to change the color of that yellow so much as it changes just the saturation. So now we can start describing the inside edge of his nose. So I think I'm going to use raw umbers and move forward a little heavier. So I can come in and get up here, start laying in some other tones that are in his face up there. Let me get some Portland gray light in this. I'm going to go back to the Indian yellow. I think maybe a little bit of cadmium yellow. So rather than trying to make his highlights like bright yellow, I find that these neutral grays really look like light more than trying to make something a brighter color. Let's continue. All right, so let's see. let's continue blocking in his face. Now I am going to go and use some of that purple, like in here. I think that makes sense. So we have two ways of approaching these darker tones. One is with a darker yellow, which is going to be like this, more of a browner color, or to go towards this purple side. And we might want to warm that up a little bit, so I'm going to put some Cadmium Red Light in there. That looks nice. So like I was mentioning a bit ago with the getting bold with your decision making in some areas, just to overcome, sometimes it's the better choice to make is that you're not taking something far enough, whether it's line work or whatever. It applies to the color too. So don't be afraid to just put something down that you don't know if it's going to work or not. Always going to be pushing and pulling, and a lot of this is I quit thinking about what I'm doing too much, and I just start doing it, and it becomes subconscious. So now I'm using this burnt umber to go in here. I think the burnt umber and the purple, because the burnt umber is a brown that's got more of a warm tone to it, like it's more reddish, I guess. So it's warm, and purple. So purple is a cool color, so you have a warm tone in it, and it makes a really nice, rich color. I don't know how to describe it, so it just makes it rich. So it also, because this Dioxazine Purple is translucent, this raw umber is opaque, it makes a color that is like darkish purplish, but like really warmer than purple and cooler than brown. If that makes sense. Alright, so like I said, I'm constantly just wiping excess paint out of my brushes. Better get to work here. Keep on yakking. Alright. I'm going to take that purpley brown, the official color of purpley brown, and mix some yellowy gray with it. See how that looks. So I just want to go in and block in some of this tone on his face right there. I'm not sure how that. Not sure if that looks right or not. I'm gonna stick with it for now. At some point, you just have to commit. All right. I think that's gonna look nice, actually, right here. Highlight on his chin right here. Wow. It's kind of looking like Shakespeare, huh? Alright. So I'm going to go back up here to his eyes, his forehead, above his eyes. I'm just going to block all that in. That. Again, these can be edges and shapes on this can be pushed and pulled all at through the entire painting. So it's not done until you're done. So I don't. After I just said commit, I'm gonna follow that up with don't commit, or don't commit, but don't stay married. I mean to your painting. Like I guess in painting you can commit because you can always change your mind, and nobody's feelings are going to get hurt. And I mean, it's not going to cost you anything except for your time, and I mean, what else are you going to be doing anyway? Even if it turns out bad, you've spent the time painting and learning something about the process of making these paintings. So there's no real way to lose on this. Alright, so I'm going to continue just to lock in shapes. I want something a little orangey, like this fiery yellowy color. I think that's good. No, I don't think I like that actually. Alright, so let's go back to the purple color. Yeah, that looks good. That looks right. Well, it looks better anyway. Somewhat. Oop. Slightly better. So the goal right now is just to kind of get the entire canvas covered with some paint. And you can go as fast or as slow as you want at this stage. It is kind of looking not, there's a lot off about this right now, but we'll get to it. Basics down. I'll end up having to figure out exactly what to pull back and fix. And I can already see where there's lots of issues with the lightness and different things, but let's just focus on getting the canvas covered. Before we get too concerned with where the mistakes are. There can be a, you know, you can also start working on trying to fix what's not working, and what you're fixing isn't the problem. You know, the problem with the reason the painting might not be working isn't always very apparent. And you can be working on the wrong area trying to fix the painting when it's really like something over here when it's really something over there. Alright. And sometimes it's just small things that are not working correctly. You know, you can get really heavy-handed trying to fix something instead of sometimes it's best just to sit back and look at your painting. Like if you get to a point where you don't know what to do on a painting, don't do anything. So sit back, work on something else if you need to. Sit back and look at it for a while until it becomes apparent what it is. You know, sometimes it pays to take a fresh eye to things, rather than just trying to stomp your way into fixing something. Alright, someone's just starting to look at it. Alright, I think. Let's hit some highlights on his nose here. Looks like I have his nose painted wrong. Oh, I see. Okay. I need to brush stroke right there. needs to go like that. Just flatten this line out. There. All right. Let's see. Let's. So continuing just all right, I don't think I have that correct. So I'm going to, rather than lay a bunch of paint right here trying to fix it, I'm just going to wipe some of that out. And we'll come back and try to restructure it here. Alright, so let's hit some of that. There we go. Alright. I like these flat brushes, like I said, they allow you to do like almost like sculptural brush strokes. Alright, so let's hit some warmer tones under his cheek here. Let's work on his eyes a bit. So what I'm doing where the shadow goes from darker to kind of a medium tone, some places I'm going to be using this sort of reddish tone to see if that works any better. So those red tones can often be a little bit more flesh-like. Alright, so let's see. I'm going to take this Portland gray medium, see if that, or dark. How does that work? Looks alright. Alright, let's get some of that dark brown. Alright, so right here at the edge of his eyes, I'm going to use a little bit more of this cadmium red light in that mixture. There we go. You know what? This needs to pull over. Good, my cat's puking. Go for it, buddy. Alright. I think these yellow tones are probably a little too yellow. So I'm just mixing some these Portland gray tones in with them to gray them down a little bit. Let's look at some Paynes gray, see if that works. Sure looks pretty good. I don't know. So, mixing that Paynes gray. Mixing it right into that yellow tone that's already on the canvas. Alright. My cat's going to be trying to puke the rest of this live stream. I don't know if you can hear him over there. He's really going after it. All right. Let's continue this eye over here. This eye is over here. Let's see, what kind of brush? I'm going to go to a round-ish brush. This is a filbert brush, which is kind of got it round. And I'm going to start kind of noodling in some of the areas around his eye here. See if I can't start making that look better. Shadow under his eyelid. Alright, so let's describe some of this around his eye here. Okay, I'm going to take my own advice here and just push this out over here like that. I always find it's easier to give advice than it is to take it. It's like I know all these things and then I still do it wrong. Or I forget and I'm like, oh yeah. Let's see. Get a little thick with that right there. Mix some of this Aliziran Crimson that I use too. It's also very transparent. So I will mix Paynes gray or a raw umber in there to thicken it up a bit. Alright, so I'm going to go back to some umber here. And just maybe it's not too bright. Still don't like the way that eye's looking at all, really. Okay, let me I'm starting to see all kinds of like things that need to be moved around here. All right. So I'm just going to start pushing stuff around. Pardon me if I quit talking for a bit. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. All right. So I'm just continuing to push shapes around. Let's push his cheek out a little bit further. All right, let's darken this up a little bit. So I'm using some raw umber and raw sienna right here. So what'll happen after a while, if you start, getting a little more aggressive, is hopefully something will start jiving correctly. It'll pop together, and you'll find what I call it. It's like the key to the painting. God damn it! Hold on. Sorry about that. I don't remember what I was talking about. Oh well. Stupid phone. Did that kick off my live stream? Oh, it's still going. Alright. What do you? I think I was talking about you'll find the key to what you're working on is like the right color combo. It's like a combination comes out. And that combination will help you figure out what colors to use in the rest of your painting. So I started with a basic aim with these violets and these yellows. And that led me, like I'm starting to figure out like, all right, so this raw umber and this raw sienna looks nice together. It works for this painting somehow. And then I can pull some of that violet into it. All right, so that looks like where I'm going to head with this. I don't know why this is so much easier to do in the live model, but I find that portrait painting is much easier when you have somebody sitting there. Probably because you can get more information out of a live model than you can out of a photograph. Ideally, if you're working from photographs, you might want to have several, like 3 or 4 with slightly different angles, specifically for this purpose of being able to understand what it is that you're painting just a little bit better. And push that way out there, see what that looks like. That looks alright. I'm going to pull that down. I'm about to pull one of my old favorite tricks, which is to turn the painting upside down. Let's see if I can get this to make any sense first. Okay. Highlight on the top of his lip here. So right there. Looks pretty nice. All right. This okay. Let's been focusing on his face, and there's a whole other section of the painting here. Let's stab at something over here and see what that. Let's make that look. See how that works. Interesting thing about this is I used this basically a yellow into this gray, and it kind of looks blue. So that's how you could paint a blue sky with yellow if you wanted to. The reason it looks blue is these other tones are kind of reddish, these browns. The more we push this yellow into that, the less that looks like blue. All right, so that, just do like that. I'm going to paint over that. I'll come back to that. Alright, just more of this Indian yellow and this Portland gray. This is a Portland gray deep, actually. Just block that in there. I'm going to take us raw umber, burnt umber. Let's mix this burnt sienna with that. See how that looks. Raw sienna. So I'm just using these earth tones, and like I said, I'm basically just covering this canvas up. Let's get rid of that canvas, the raw canvas. I mean. Alright, so more of this. That's purple come down in here. So I've switched this bigger flat brush, and I'm continuing to just go at this a little more aggressively. the reason I start chopping this so fast is I start having to do things kind of intuitively rather than trying to carefully control. I find that I start out with this control, realize I can't do it that way, and then I go back to doing it this way. I don't worry, it keeps me from worrying about the mistakes. I also just stay focused on getting the right patterns or shapes involved into it. I just find that it works better doing it this way for me. But it takes me a little bit to get there. Like, I have to start out dilly-dallying, just putzing around on something, and then when it doesn't work, I start chopping away at it a little more aggressively. So I'm using this raw umber and the Dioxazine Purple a lot for these darks. All right, and then the raw Sienna and the raw Umber for some of the lighter tones that are in these dark tones. So I'm just continuing to refine these shapes. All right, so all right, so I'm going to do something here like I like to do, which is turn my painting upside down and look at it. Let's see if it works any better this way. All right. Give me a second here to look at it. And what happens when I do this is I can see shape relationships as abstractions rather than it looks like a face. And that helps to go in and touch up some things. Anything that's really not working at all will jump out at this point. And I can see some overall it looks like it's doing all right. Let's see if that makes a difference. I think it's starting to look like it. If things don't look like, you know, if you're doing a portrait and it's not looking like them immediately, don't sweat it. You can just keep working at it until it does. And eventually you will get your painting to submit. Which is what I'm aiming for right now. So get this thing to submit. All right. I need a better round brush. This might work. Okay, I'm gonna strokes in there. So as your paint gets thick on here, and you want to keep adding paint, you're gonna have to thin down your paint a bit. Otherwise, it's just going to get muddy. All right, I want that stroke right there. And then I'm going to take some of that raw umber again, some of this yellow ochre this time. A little bit more of the raw umber. I want it a little bit darker. Right there. All right. So let's see. It's got some shape right there. Alright, so sometimes I'll look at my painting and I'll just hold my brush to cover up parts to see if that needs to be shaved off or, you know, what. So that's what I'm doing sometimes. Yeah, looks like it needs to go that way. It needs to be like that. Okay. Continue to work on the face. I mean, of course we'll work on the face. Continue to modulate this cheek here. I'm going to hit this with a little darker tone. Basically this Dioxazine Purple and a raw umber. It's got some of the raw umber and yellow mixture mixed in with it. Alright, so I see something that can be fixed here. So I think this let's get some more of that Indian yellow. This is the Indian yellow, and there we go. So I'm going to just pull that back. So I'm going to lighten that up a bit. Alright, so let's go back into his forehead a bit. So I need a little bit lighter. There we go, Portland gray, light. Okay. Just mixing some of this raw umber in here. Continue to do that. All right, I like. Hold on a second. So, all right. I'll turn it the other way around here in a second. I think I'm starting to figure out what's working and not working here. Another thing you can do, other than turning the painting upside down, is if you have a mirror set up, you can go look at it in a mirror. It will help you have a fresh look at it the same sort of way. This is one of the things that I like to do a lot. It works for me. Might work for you, I don't know. Alright, let's see, how does that look? This guy's got so much character in his face, it's crazy. Alright, so I'm gonna, just for effects, I'm gonna start getting some detail here in his face. Just for giggles. Alright, alright. Some of the things that help with this expression. I think I've been going for a while on this. It's been an hour and 30 minutes already. I'm about ready to call this one. It's not done. I got a ways to go on this. But my live stream, I think I'm about to be done with that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know. I look at the comments and try to get back to everybody. Try to respond to things. If you have some feedback about the live stream, because this is something that's, well, I've done it a few times. Still trying to work out kinks and stuff on it. So any sort of help or insight on what can make that better, please let me know. Anybody has any suggestions for the portrait next week? I'm going to do this again next Friday. I'm going to try to do this every Friday. If there's something you would like to see, whether it's like a portrait of somebody specific, or if you have technical questions you would like me to take a stab at, let me know that too. So I'm doing this for a while. I know a few things, I think. So yeah, anything you think would be helpful in addressing in these live streams. Okay, just for fun, I'm going to hit this little highlight up in his eye, right there. That actually looks kind of cool. Yeah, so anything you want me to talk about regarding the painting process, let me know either in the comments or, you know, whatever. If you want to know farther ahead of time, let me know that. I might post something about what I'm going to be working on, so if anybody wants to work along with what I'm doing, they can do so as well. Okay, before I stop, I haven't even touched his, damn it, haven't even touched his sweater yet. So let me kind of scrub that in real quick. What kind of rag is that? All right. Let's do it this way. So I'm just using some of this raw umber and yellow mixture that I was using before. So I like these flat brushes again for these, making these really angular brush strokes that are nice for all kinds of reasons. But doing drapery is one of them. Alright, so get that in there. Alright. So I will work on this some more during the next day or two, or whatever, and I'll probably try to record it, and I might live stream it. I live streamed the second part of the Walter White portrait last week, so I might live stream it. I'll probably just live stream it to the YouTube channel. So if you want to check me out when I'm doing that, the YouTube channel has a lot more to see. I have close-ups of the palette and the reference. You can see the reference in in that too. If you want to see the reference I'm working from, it's posted there. I put it in the, I think I posted my Facebook page too. Alright, so that about, we'll wrap this up for today. Just say that, then I keep working. That happens sometimes. Things start to come together when you're thinking you're going to quit, and then it seduces you back into it. So just work a little bit more. It'll be fun, I promise. Okay, painting. Sometimes it's right. The whole point of painting is that it should be fun. So this is what's fun for me. Hey, let's put that pipe in real quick. We'll just indicate it in there. I'm not going to get too much with it. Let's do this. And then let's do this. Let's do one more fun thing here. Now, let's do this. Oops. Is that too much? I don't know. Whatever floats your boat. Oops, that didn't look right. Well, that might not have been a great decision, but screw it. Ooh, that doesn't look good either. Let's see. As I continue to screw this up. Yeah, alright, well, you pulled it back. I'm going to lay this flat, so if I don't, it's going to continue to run and drip over everything. And I kind of got it to where I want it right now. So, alright. I will see you guys next week. Or, you'll see me next week. If everything goes according to plan. I hope this was somewhat enjoyable for you. Continue to toy with this. And I'm going to keep, there's a couple more things I want to do here. Toy with that. All right. This time I mean it. Well, as you can see, I'm still working on it. Alright guys, the rubber gloves are coming off. I will see you later.